There was a moment in history when an entire civilization woke up and didn't recognize itself anymore. Not because it changed physically. The mountains were still the same. The poetry was still as ancient and beautiful. The blood running through the veins was still the same golden Persian lineage that had birthed empires for thousands of years. But something deeper died that year. Something that no bomb could destroy, no weapon could fight back against. An identity, a self. In 1979, Iran didn't just have a revolution, it had an identity swap. And what was erased wasn't just a government, it was a mirror. For nearly 2,500 years, Persia looked at itself and saw Persia, the philosophers, the astronomers, the poets who made the world weep. But in the span of months, that mirror was shattered, and what looked back wasn't Persian anymore. It was political. It was religious doctrine. It was something imposed from the outside, trying to convince people it came from within. This is the story of how a nation lost its soul while believing it was finding God. And if you've ever felt erased by circumstances beyond your control, if you've ever watched your identity dissolve into something you didn't choose, this message is for you. Before we go deeper, understand what we're really talking about here. This isn't just politics. This isn't just history happening to other people in other countries. This is about the fundamental human need to know who you are and what happens when the world tells you that who you've always been is wrong. It speaks to anyone who's ever experienced displacement, anyone who's felt their identity threatened, anyone who's watched their culture or their sense of self get rewritten by forces claiming to save it. Maybe you're an immigrant who feels pulled between two worlds. Maybe you're from a community that's been politicized and you can barely recognize it anymore. Maybe you're a young person trying to figure out who you are while everyone around you is screaming different versions of who you should be. This message reaches all of you. Because what happened in Iran in 1979 wasn't unique to Iran. It was a profound example of how identity can be weaponized, how the most sacred parts of a civilization, its culture, its history, its spiritual depth, can be hijacked and repurposed. And the tragedy isn't that change happened. Change always happens. The tragedy is that something beautiful was deliberately buried, and millions of people watched it happen and felt themselves disappearing with it. To understand this, you have to understand what Persia was before 1979. And I don't mean politically, I mean spiritually, culturally, in the soul of the civilization itself. For thousands of years, Persia was known for something specific. It was the birthplace of philosophy. It was where Zoroastrianism emerged, a faith so ancient and so sophisticated that it influenced every major religion that came after it. It was where mathematics was elevated to an art form. It was where poets didn't just write words, they rewrote reality itself. Rumi, Hafez, Omar Khayyam, these weren't just names, these were forces. They were spiritual teachers who taught that the divine wasn't locked away in temples or behind rules. The divine was everywhere, in wine, in love, in laughter, in the questioning of God itself. This is crucial to understand. Persian culture had integrated Islam centuries ago. Islam came to Persia not as an invasion, but as a conversation. And from that conversation, something unique was born: Persian Islam, Islamic Persian culture. It was their Islam, infused with their philosophy, their poetry, their skepticism, their humor, their tolerance. A Persian Muslim could love Hafez and love God simultaneously, could question authority and remain faithful, could be spiritual without being controlled. But here's where the story breaks. By the 1970s, Iran was caught between two worlds. There was the Shah, a modernizer, a westernizer, a man trying to pull Iran into the 20th century. And then there was the resistance to him, growing, passionate, desperate. People were suffering. The economy was brutal. The secret police were real. people were angry, and into that anger stepped a figure who promised salvation, Ayatollah Khomeini. And he didn't promise democracy, he didn't promise reform, he promised Islam. Not Persian Islam, integrated, artistic, philosophical Islam. He promised a political Islam, a total system, a complete replacement of everything that was secular, everything that was Western, everything that was individually chosen. And here's what makes this psychologically devastating. He wrapped it in the language of liberation. He called it a revolution for Islam, but what it really was a revolution against Persia. The revolution succeeded on February 11, 1979, and overnight, the entire identity infrastructure of the nation changed. Suddenly, you weren't a Persian first, you were a Muslim subject of an Islamic republic. Your national identity wasn't rooted in 2,500 years of philosophy and poetry. It was rooted in a specific interpretation of Islamic law, a political interpretation, one man's vision of what God wanted. And if you questioned it, you weren't engaging in the noble Persian tradition of intellectual discourse, you were committing blasphemy. The schools changed, the curriculum was rewritten. Suddenly, teaching the philosophy of ancient Persia was less important than teaching Islamic doctrine. The universities were purged. Professors who taught secular subjects, who encouraged critical thinking, who celebrated Persian intellectual heritage, many were fired, imprisoned, or killed. The beautiful, complex, spiritually rich Persian tradition was systematically downgraded in favor of a singular, rigid political ideology. But it goes deeper than institutions, it goes into the soul. Imagine growing up and being told that the greatest achievements of your civilization, the things your ancestors were known for, were actually wrong, that the poetry you grew up loving was indulgent, that the skepticism embedded in your culture was dangerous, that the openness and tolerance of classical Persian Islam was a weakness, not a strength. Imagine looking in the mirror and seeing not your ancestors reflected back, but the apparatus of the state. For millions of Iranians, this was psychological annihilation. Not death, which would have been merciful in its clarity, but erasure. Your identity is being erased while you're still alive. You're being told to be someone else, someone better, someone more correct. And if you resist, if you try to hold on to who you are, you become dangerous. You become a threat. This is the psychological weight that millions of Iranians carried after 1979, and many still carry today.
But here's what I need you to understand, because this is the part that changes everything. The revolution didn't happen to Iranians, it happened through them. Millions of Iranians, students, workers, the poor, the middle class, they participated in this revolution believing they were saving their country. They weren't trying to erase Persia, they were trying to save it from what they saw as corruption, from Western influence, from inequality. And this is the psychological horror of it. People willingly participated in their own cultural erasure because they were promised justice. They were promised that destroying the secular state would create equality. They were promised that returning to Islam would return them to themselves. They didn't realize, or perhaps many did realize too late, that you can't return to something by destroying it. You can only create something new and hope it resembles what you lost. This is the turning point. This is where we have to feel the weight of what happens when a people loses the ability to see clearly, when desperation and anger cloud vision, when a revolutionary impulse, which can be beautiful, which can liberate, becomes a tool of control instead. The scripture speaks to this. In Ecclesiastes it says, "For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything, neither have they any more a reward." The revolution in 1979 didn't just kill people, though it did. It killed something worse, potential. It killed the possibility that Iran could modernize and remain authentically Persian. It killed the possibility that Islam could be progressive and faithful. It killed the possibility that a people could evolve without erasing themselves. And here's the deeper insight. This is what happens when we hand over the responsibility for our identity to external forces, whether it's a government, a political movement, a cultural trend, or even the opinions of others. When you stop being the author of your own identity, someone else will be, and they won't write it for your benefit. For 2,500 years, Persia was a civilization that chose itself repeatedly. It survived invasions, religions, empires, and it remained Persian because Persians refused to let anyone else define what that meant. But in 1979, for the first time in centuries, that authority was surrendered. And once you surrender it, it's almost impossible to take it back. But here's where the perspective shifts. The fact that Persian identity was nearly erased, and I say nearly, tells you something profound about identity itself. It tells you that it cannot actually die. It can be suppressed, it can be buried, it can be strategically forgotten by institutions and educational systems, but it cannot die because it lives in the people. It lives in their blood, in their language, in the stories they tell their children, in the poetry they read when no one is watching, in the way they love, in their refusal to forget. This is the scripture moment. In Isaiah 48, it says, "The grass withereth, the flower fadeth, but the word of our God shall stand forever." What this means is that what is real, what is true about a people, about a culture, about a civilization, cannot be permanently destroyed by human systems. It can be hidden, but it will persist. It will resurface. It will wait. And indeed, it has. Today, across the diaspora, in Los Angeles, in New York, in Toronto, in Europe, Persian culture is experiencing a renaissance. Young Iranians are rediscovering the poetry, the philosophy, the history. They're learning Farsi not as a language of the state, but as a language of their self. They're reconnecting with Zoroastrianism, with ancient Persian philosophy, with the tradition of intellectual questioning that was nearly stolen from them. The identity wasn't destroyed, it was just made to wait. So what does this mean for you? Why am I telling you this story if you're not Iranian? Because you're living in a time when identity is being contested everywhere. Your identity as a young person, as a professional, as a believer, as someone with dreams that don't fit into the boxes society prepared for you, is constantly under assault. Forces want to redefine you. They want to convince you that who you've always been is wrong, that your instincts are dangerous, that your questions are threats, that you need to surrender your agency and let them tell you who to be. And the lesson of Iran, the painful, necessary lesson, is this: don't surrender. Not to governments, not to movements, not to trends, not to people who promise you salvation in exchange for yourself. Your identity is not a commodity. It's not something to be negotiated or traded or erased for a promise of security. It is yours. You are the only authority on who you are. And the moment you give that authority to someone else, even someone who tells you it's for your own good, even someone you believe in, even someone who promises justice, you begin to disappear. The Persians lost something in 1979. They lost the right to define themselves. But what the revolution couldn't take, what nothing can take, is the capacity to define themselves. That capacity lives in every person, in every generation, in you. So here's your final truth. You are not your circumstances. You are not the political system you live under. You are not the narrative other people write about you. You are the persistent, irreducible truth of who you choose to be when no one is watching. You are the voice that whispers, "No, this is not me," when the world demands you become someone else. The revolution in Iran tried to erase Persia, but Persia is still here. And that's not a historical fact, that's a promise that what is genuinely yours, your soul, your identity, your right to define yourself, cannot be permanently stolen. Hold on to it, guard it. Let no system, no person, no movement convince you to surrender it, because once you do, getting it back is the work of generations. This is not just a message about history. This is a message about freedom, the deepest freedom, the freedom to be yourself when the world demands you be someone else. And that freedom ultimately is not given, it's chosen. Choose it.